Media Day for 2024 for the University of Rio Grande men's soccer team. I'm Randy Payton, the Sports Information Director here at the University of Rio Grande, joined by men's head coach Scott Morrissey. I guess we always ask this question anytime that you're at this point in the season. It's an exciting time because you're ready to kick it off, and you really you think you know what you have, but you're not 100% sure at this point.
Correct. I mean, we're excited to get started. We're only a week into preseason. And a lot of new faces, but excited to get going and, play some games for real at some point and see where we lie.
14-2-3 last year. You make the NAIA tournament. You lose in the second round in double overtime to Westcliff. You had 8 guys from that team that made All-Conference last year. 5 of them are back this year, and obviously you've got some building blocks to work around.
Sure. I think everyone in the program would agree that, last year was a bit of a disappointment. Just the way we finished the season. We'd like to obviously get to the final site. We had a number of injuries, just things that we couldn't control. And when those things happen, we had other players step up. We just didn't have enough at the end to get past Westcliff to get to that final site.
That's what I started to ask was the injury bug. Obviously something that you can't control as the season goes on, and something that, it jumped up and bit you big time last year. Yeah,
I mean, it all started at the beginning of the season with Villius. Then it kind of proceeds in the Tech regular season game where we lose, a guy to an ACL, broken foot, fractured ankle. So those things really hurt. I mean, we had guys that stepped up, did as best as they could, but the injuries are things you just can't overcome.
We mentioned you got 5 of the 8 guys that made All-Conference last year back this year. 4 first-teamers, Joe McInnes, Tommy Munoz, Salazar, Harry Walsh, and Mateus DeCampos. Kind of talk about those guys. Justin Jimenez, a second-teamer as well. Again, those are good guys when you're trying to fill in pieces around them.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we have a really good nucleus of guys back. We have guys that played over the summer that have, some minutes under their belt. We had, a guy that we didn't mention, Rafa Kawada, who, he wasn't a guy in the mix really last year until late in the season. He's had a great summer, and we expect big things from him. And so we've got those pieces back, and then we've brought in what we think is a really good recruiting class. But the measure of the success of our recruiting and our season is going to be whether we're playing in December.
Right. And before we get to those newcomers, we talked about those injuries last year. Yes, it's bad that you lose those frontline guys, but now you've got some guys who were kind of thrown into the fire maybe a little more than they would have been last year because of those injuries, who you do have back this year.
Yeah, so,
try to turn it into a positive.
Yeah, absolutely. A great example of that is like, Tommy Munoz. A guy not that we haven't mentioned that's a returner, that's a fifth-year guy, is Diego Martinez. And, I just know that if his fitness levels are correct and he's doing the right things, he is a difference maker. So all of those guys are going to be called upon. And those guys that got called upon last year, midway through the season, I mean, they were thrown right into it and did very, very well. That Westcliff game's a great example. When we break that game down, we were very dominant for about 70 minutes. And then we just hit a brick wall because we just didn't have the depth and numbers that they had, and it showed in the overtime.
You talked about some of your newcomers and being excited about them. Kind of mentioned some names who to look for.
To be honest, we've had a week of training.
You're still trying to figure that out.
And we are still trying to figure it out. We've got some really exciting new guys. I'm not necessarily going to highlight anyone in particular. We've got really good goalkeeping, and we've got, I think, in my opinion, and I think the staff's opinion, we've got guys that can play in multiple areas of the field that will, really push and impact the look of our team. Some guys carrying some injuries that have missed some training sessions. But it's still really, really early, and I'd kind of be reserved to just not really say a whole lot until we've had a really good evaluation, and that's only going to come with games.
You know, one of the things about your program since I've been here, you've got kids that can score, but this team and this program has, over the years, been built on playing pretty good defense.
Yeah, the defensive shape and how we go about our business defensively, you know, defending is where you've got to be sound, and if we're going to win a national championship or kind of contend for one, you've got to be defensively sound, and that will be our kind of trademark as to how we go about our business defensively before we ever think about going forward and scoring goals.
Before I let you go, kind of map out the conference, if you will. It's got a little bit different look this year in the fact that Point Park is gone, Ohio Christian is gone. You guys are picked number 1 in the league, and how's it shape out?
It's interesting because, you know, Point Park has really done a good job, and Cameron at Point Park's done a great job with recruiting and, you know, building that program. And for us to lose Point Park to the NCAA Division II hurts in the fact that we lose a great opponent. We lose an opponent that's got an outstanding facility. And so that hurts. Ohio Christian just up the road. You know, obviously we lose 2 conference games. We pick up non-conference opponents with that. And then Oliver Fisher, you know, leaves Tech to go to Pikeville, and Tech will always be good, and they've got great coaching, who they've hired, and so, you know, you'll still see the traditional Tech and Rio, and Oakland City's going to be right there. So I think the conference is pretty wide open. Our non-conference schedule's arguably one of the best non-conference schedules in the country. Play Lindsay, play Bethel of Indiana, Georgia Gwinnett, Cumberland U, Washington Adventist, Indiana Wesleyan, so all national tournament opponents.
And I think you do that to some degree because you mentioned the Techs and the Oakland Cities and the schools like that, but there is toward the bottom of our conference a fairly significant drop-off when you're looking at trying to get a quality opponent and those tight games that make you better when it comes to the NAIA tournament.
Yeah, and not to be disrespectful to anybody in the conference, but the way the selection is going to take place for national seeding and national tournament seeding is nothing to do with national polls and rankings. All that's thrown out the window. It's strength of schedule. So you got to play the best you possibly can, and I'd rather test ourselves each week with the top opponents that we can.
Well, there you go. There's a look at the 2024 season for the University of Rio Grande men's soccer team here on Media Day.